2004. Billund, a small town in Denmark, on a flat and windy stretch of farmland. Inside a headquarters there, the most beloved toymaker on earth was quietly running out of money. Not a struggling little workshop, the company that made the little plastic brick, the toy that sits, right now, in a box in hundreds of millions of homes. By some tellings, it was losing close to $1 million a day. Its own success had curdled into debt, and the losses that year would be the worst in its entire history. And the man whose family name was stamped on every single box, the grandson of the carpenter who started it all, was about to do something no one saw coming. He was going to step down and hand his family's company, for the first time in 3 generations, to a complete outsider, brought in to save a company that had, quietly, come within months of collapse. This is the story of a tiny plastic brick that began on a carpenter's workbench in 1932. That grew into the most powerful brand in the entire world, that almost died and then came back to sit, one day, at the very top of the toy trade on planet Earth. But not, and hold on to this, in the way you would expect, because the family that built it would not be the ones who brought it back. This is World's Richest, and here, we do not just tell you the shining half of a story, we show you the whole of it, the part the world celebrates and the part that very nearly ended everything. If this is your first time on the channel, subscribe, it is completely free. And today, the full story, from a single carpenter's bench in a Danish village to the top of the world. To understand Lego, you have to begin with a man who did not make a single toy for the first 40 years of his life. His name was Kirk Kristiansen. Born in 1891 in a poor farming district of Jutland in western Denmark, the 10th of 10 children. He trained as a carpenter, a joiner, a worker of wood, and in 1916 he bought a small woodworking shop in a tiny village called Billund. A place so small, so quiet, that almost nothing had ever happened there. He built houses, he made furniture, doors, and window frames for the local farmers. He was, by every account, a deeply religious and stubborn man. A man who believed that a thing worth making was worth making right. There is a story people still tell, that his son once boasted of saving money by giving the toy ducks only 2 coats of varnish instead of 3. And that Kirk sent the boy straight back to the station to fetch every last one of them and add the 3rd coat, by hand, whatever it cost. Only the best was ever good enough. Those words would, one day, become the company's motto. But first, the world would try, more than once, to burn it all down. The first fire came in 1924. 2 of his own small sons, playing with wood shavings and a glue machine, accidentally set the workshop alight. It burned. The workshop, and the family home with it, gone. Most men would have been broken by it. Kirk built a bigger workshop, but then came something far larger than a fire, the Great Depression. Money vanished. Farmers stopped building. Nobody, in a poor corner of Denmark, was ordering new houses or new furniture. And Kirk, with employees to pay and a family to feed, needed something, anything, that people might still buy. So he began to make small things, cheap things, stepladders, ironing boards, stools, and toys, wooden toys, small pull-along animals, piggy banks, little cars and trucks. At first, it was almost desperate. Times were so hard, the story goes, that he sometimes accepted food instead of money as payment. Others told him he was mad, that toys were a foolish business for a serious carpenter. Even his own family worried. But Kirk had noticed one quiet thing. Even in the worst of times, even when parents had almost nothing, they would still, somehow, find a way to buy one small toy for a child. The date the company counts as its beginning is the 10th of August, 1932. A carpenter making wooden toys because there was almost nothing else left to make. 2 years later, in 1934, he gave the little business a name. He wanted something short, something that sounded good. He held a contest among his own workers. The prize, a bottle of his homemade wine, but in the end, he chose the winning name himself. He took two Danish words, leg, godt. It means play well, and he pressed them together into one, Lego, play well, and there is a strange piece of luck buried inside it. Years later, someone pointed out that in Latin, that same word can be read to mean, I put together, I assemble. But Ole Kirk did not know that. He only knew what it meant in Danish, play well. And from that little wooden workshop came a toy that would carry his name far beyond the village. A simple pull-along wooden duck, its flat bill clacking open and shut as a child dragged it across the floor. That duck is still, to this day, the emblem of everything that came before the brick. Then, the fire came again. In 1942, an electrical fault in the dead of night. And this time it took everything. The whole factory, the entire stock, every drawing, every model, every design he had ever made, turned to ash. For the second time in his life, Ole Kirk Kristiansen stood in the smoking ruins of his own work, and for the second time, he rebuilt. Bigger, more modern, because he felt he owed it to the 26 people who worked for him. And in that rebuilt factory, he made a bet that would change everything. In 1947, Lego bought a machine, a plastic injection molding machine, one of the very first of its kind in all of Denmark. It cost a fortune, around 30,000 Danish kroner, more than double the entire profit the company had made in the whole previous year. Ole Kirk's own sons thought it was reckless. Plastic, in those days, was seen as cheap, a poor substitute for honest wood. But Ole Kirk, and above all his son, Gottfried, saw something in it. And with that machine came a sample, a small plastic building brick from Britain, hollow with little studs on top, an idea from an Englishman named Hilary Page. Lego took that idea and began to build on it. For years, the plastic bricks did not really sell. They were clever, children could stack them, but they did not truly hold. Knock the model, and it fell apart. And here, the second great figure of this story steps forward, Ole Kirk's son, Gottfried Kirk Kristiansen. He looked at the brick, and he saw the flaw. The bricks sat on top of one another, but nothing gripped. So he and his team tried something. They added little tubes, hollow tubes, underneath the brick, so that the studs of one brick and the tubes of the next would lock together, grip, and then pull apart again, easily, in a child's hands. They called it clutch power. And on the 28th of January 1958, at 13 minutes to 2 in the afternoon, Gottfried filed the patent. That brick, the one from 1958, is the modern Lego brick. And here is the detail that still stops people cold. A brick made in that factory in 1958 still locks perfectly onto a brick made this very morning, almost 70 years apart, and they still fit. Gottfried had seen something larger too. Not just a brick, but a system. Every piece, compatible with every other piece. A toy a child could add to, year after year after year. He called it the Lego system of play. And just weeks after that patent was filed, Ole Kirk Kristiansen, the old carpenter, died. He never saw what his family's little brick would become. He left behind a workshop, a name that meant play well, and a son who was about to take it across the world. What followed were the golden years. Gottfried took the brick global, across Europe and on toward America. And in 1968, beside the factory, in that same tiny town of Billund, the family opened a park, built out of its own bricks, Legoland, tiny brick cities, harbors, trains, whole miniature worlds laid out for people to walk through. They expected a modest local crowd. In its first season alone, 625,000 people came. Then, in 1978, came the little figure that would become the soul of the whole thing, the minifigure, a small yellow person with a simple, smiling face and arms and legs that actually moved. And it was made yellow, and given no particular expression, on purpose, so that any child, anywhere in the world could look at it and decide for themselves exactly who it was. And leading the company through all of it was the third generation, Kirk Kristiansen, grandson of the carpenter. He took charge in 1979 at just 31 years old. Under him, Lego exploded. Castles, pirates, space. Technic for older builders. And in 1999, Lego did something it had never done before. It signed its first ever deal for someone else's story, a license. The story was Star Wars. It was a gamble. Purists hated it. Lego was supposed to be about a child's own imagination, not somebody else's film. But it sold. In its first year, it beat the forecast by around 500%. Roughly 1 in every 6 Lego sets sold that year was Star Wars. It looked like pure genius. It was also the very first crack in the wall. Because success did something dangerous to Lego. It made the company believe it could do anything. If children loved the brand, then surely they would love Lego everything. And so, through the late 1990s and into the 2000s, Lego began to wander, further and further from the brick. It made Lego clothes, Lego watches. It made jewelry for girls, plastic beads and bracelets, designed, by its own later admission, almost without ever asking whether girls actually wanted it. It made video games, a movie arm, television tie-ins. It built still more theme parks. Each idea, on its own, seemed to make a kind of sense. Together, they pulled the company in 100 directions at once. And behind the scenes, something worse was happening. To make all of these new toys, Lego kept inventing new pieces, new shapes, new molds. The number of different parts the company made ballooned, from a few hundred core pieces to more than 13,000 separate elements. 13,000, each one needing its own expensive mold. A company famous for one simple, universal brick had quietly buried itself under 13,000 special ones. There were toys that abandoned the brick altogether, action figures with a tie-in television show that flopped hard, and the licensed sets, the films, carried a new kind of danger. When the movie was in cinemas, sales soared. When it left, they collapsed. Lego had hitched itself to Hollywood's calendar, and Hollywood does not wait for anyone. Here, a hard truth needs saying. Growing a company is not a sin. Reaching, expanding, taking on risk is not a sin. Every great company does it. The question is only ever this: does the new thing actually work? Does the money you spent actually come back? For Lego, around the turn of the century, the answer, quietly, became no. The new toys did not sell like the brick. The costs kept climbing. And the profit, the thing that had always been there, began to disappear. In the year 2000, Lego posted a heavy loss. It steadied, briefly, and then it fell off a cliff. By 2003, the company was staring at a deficit of around 1.5 billion Danish kroner. And in June of that year, the company's own head of strategy stood up in front of the management and said the words that would follow Lego forever. "We are," he said, "on a burning platform." He meant it plainly. The company was losing money. The cash was running out. And there was a real, genuine risk that the whole thing could break apart and be sold off for parts. This was not drama. It was the truth. And it got worse before it got better. The year 2004 would be the worst in the entire history of the company. A loss of nearly 1.9 billion kroner, around $320 million, in a single year. The largest Lego had ever seen. The little brick that had survived 2 fires and a world war and the Great Depression was, for the first time, genuinely close to the end. And this is the moment everything turned, not with a rescue, with a surrender. In October of 2004, Kirk Kristiansen, the grandson, the owner, the man who had run Lego for 25 years, did the hardest thing a family owner can ever do. He admitted he was not the man to fix it. He stepped down, As the head of his own family's company, he reached into his own personal fortune and put in around 800 million kroner of his own money to keep it alive. And, most striking of all, he handed the running of Lego to someone from outside the family. For the first time in the modern history of the company, no Kristiansen sat at the top. The man who took over was named Jørgen Vig Knudstorp. He was 35 years old. He had come from the outside, a former consultant from the firm McKinsey. He had no family claim to the brick at all. And now the survival of the whole thing, 3 generations of one family's work, was placed entirely in his hands. And Knudstorp did something that must have felt to the family almost like heresy. He did not chase more, he chased less. He looked at the 13,000 different pieces and he began to cut. Down toward 7,000, back to basics. He killed the toys that had strayed from the brick. He looked at the theme parks, the Legoland parks, the pride of the company, and in 2005, he sold off control of them to an outside investor for around $460 million. Beloved as they were, they drained cash the company simply did not have. And then, slowly, the discipline began to work. The very next year, 2005, just 1 year after the worst loss in its history, Lego made a profit again, around 700 million kroner. The bleeding had stopped. The licensed sets, Star Wars, and the others were kept carefully because they still brought in real cash. But the true heart of the fix was the brick. The simple, universal interlocking brick that Gottfried had patented back in 1958. Lego had almost died by forgetting it, and it would come back by remembering it. And come back it did. By 2010, Lego was debt-free and sitting on cash again, and in a flat, tired toy market where children were supposed to be abandoning bricks for screens, Lego's sales were doing the exact opposite. Climbing fast, then it began to win in the very places it had once failed. In 2011, it launched a world of its own, ninjas, and a story, and a television show to carry it. Its own idea, not a borrowed one. It became the biggest product launch in the company's history. And in 2012, Lego went back to the market it had insulted years before with those unwanted plastic beads. It launched a new line, built, this time, on actual research into how girls really played. It sold around twice what the company had expected, in 6 months. The failure of the past, quietly rewritten as a triumph. And then, the brick conquered the one place it had never truly been. In February of 2014, a film opened in cinemas around the world. A film made from end to end out of Lego. Almost everyone expected a feature-length toy advertisement. Instead, it was a genuine, joyful hit. It earned close to $500 million, and it turned the brand, the thing that had almost died a decade before, into something the whole world adored, all over again. In 2015, a global survey of brands named Lego the most powerful brand in the world. Not the most valuable, the most powerful. It knocked Ferrari clean off the top spot, and in the first half of that very same year, Lego passed a milestone its founders could never have dreamed of. Measured by revenue, it overtook the American giant Mattel, the maker of Barbie, to become the largest toy company on the entire planet. Around $2.1 billion in just 6 months, the little brick from the burned-down workshop in the tiny Danish town was, officially, #1 in the world. The bricks were back. So, that should be the perfect ending. The family toy nearly dies. And the family saves it, except that is not quite what happened. And this is the part the neat version quietly leaves out, because when Lego came back, the family was not the one at the controls. Kirk Kristiansen had stepped down, and he did not come back to run it. The company was saved, and then led and grown and carried to the top of the world by the outsider, by Knudstorp. Now, the name over the door was still the family's. Through their holding company, a firm called Kirkby, The family never, for one single moment, lost ownership of Lego. It was always, entirely, theirs. That much of the fairy tale is true, but the comeback itself, the actual grinding work of pulling the brick back from the edge, belonged to a man who did not share their name. Some founders, when their company falls, fight in public, for years, to take it back. Lego's family did almost the opposite. They owned it all along. And they chose, at the worst possible moment, to step aside and let a stranger save it. The bricks came back. The family, deliberately, did not. And it is worth being honest about the exact size of what almost happened. Lego never went bankrupt. That matters. It never went insolvent. The family never lost the company, so this is not a story of ruin. It is a story of a rescue, from the very edge of it. The famous numbers people love to repeat, the $1 million a day, the year and a half from the end, are the language of the business press, painted a little brighter than the audited books. But what is not in any doubt is that Lego's own strategy chief told his bosses the company might not survive, that it lost, in one single year, the most money it ever had, and that the family's owner reached into his own pocket and put his own fortune on the table to keep it breathing while an outsider went to work. And there is one more group the neat version forgets, the people in the factories. In Billund and beyond, thousands of workers and their families whose whole lives were tied to that little brick. When a company loses $1 million a day, the number is an abstraction. For them, it was rent and school and dinner. The comeback saved them too. That part rarely makes the headline, because that is the thing Lego's story really tells us, that the very largest things in the world can begin in the smallest possible rooms, a carpenter's workshop. In a village where nothing had ever happened, a man who made wooden ducks because the Depression had taken everything else away. Only the best is good enough, he told his son. And that idea, one stubborn carpenter refusing to make a single thing badly, became a brick. And that brick became a system. And that system, after 2 fires and a near death and 1 terrible year, became the most powerful toy brand on the face of the earth. The company almost lost it all, the very moment it forgot the one thing it was built on, the simple brick, and it was saved, the moment someone had the courage to throw away all the rest and return to it. So the questions Lego leaves us with are quieter than you might think. When a family builds something extraordinary, and then, at the darkest hour, has the wisdom to hand it to a stranger, whose comeback is it in the end? The family that owned it all along, or the outsider who actually saved it? And what happens next to a company whose entire genius was one simple idea held for 90 years in a world of screens and apps and games designed never to let a child put them down? For now, the brick has answered, from a burned-down workshop to the very top of the world. And that is what World's Richest is for. Not just the shining half, the whole of it. The empire and the near collapse. The famous family names and the outsider that most people could not name at all. If tonight's story made you stop and think, then subscribe. And send it to someone who loves the real story behind the great fortunes. Not the polished half, but all of it. We will see you with another one very soon.